We can start with ninja changes. And then this one's not loading up. Okay, the Asmongold video. Okay, I'll watch the Asmongold video.
Nice.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
That's so cool.
Oh, hello. Hi. Nice to meet you.
That's so cool.
まずは2人ともすごいお忙しい中、ファイナルファンタジー14のメディアツアーに参加してくださってありがとうございます。
Just wanted to thank you guys really quick for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend this media event.
まあそれぞれにあるんですけど、特にアズモンさんはお母さんちょっと大変な状況。
Asmon san got Richard the son. Dude, that's so cool to hear. I don't know why. I would have never thought I'd hear that in my life.
なのにわざわざ参加してくれて本当にありがとうございます。
And I'm sure you have a lot going on, but Asmon, I've heard that your mom was not doing very well, so I'm sorry to hear that you were able to make it here.
Thank you very much.
That's so cool.
It's still an ongoing thing, and it probably will be for, unfortunately, the foreseeable future. But I'm doing my best, and I'm doing as well as I can.
Hope everything
and I want to say
goes well.
also thank you for being here as well. I know obviously this close to a release, everybody is really cramped on time, and so I really appreciate you giving us this opportunity and taking out the time to talk to us.
いやもうそしてリッチさんはねダブルレジェンドおめでとうございます。
Oh, and
Rich,
congratulations on Dragon.
Double Legend.
Oh, Double Legend. Sorry, Double Legend.
Thank you. We're going for triple. Too soon. Too soon.
次はアレキサンダーです。頑張ります。
Double
トリプル
Legend
頑張ります。
2人ともすごい自由に14楽しんでもらってて嬉しいです。日本のプレイヤーもみんな2人のストリーミングね、2人だけのじゃないですけどみんな見てるので。
But yeah, we're really happy that
Dude,
you guys
this
are
is so
enjoying
cool.
14 so much, and you have the freedom to kind of roam around and do what you do. And a lot of people in Japan, the players in Japan, have kind of watched you guys stream as well. Sometimes just the two of you, or like other streams as well. So, yeah, I hope you continue to enjoy the game.
さて今日ね何を聞いていただいてもいいです。 MMO の話をしようぜでもいいし、ゲームの話をしようぜでもいいし、プライベートなことでもいいです。何でも思うことを質問していただけたらと思います。よろしくお願いします。
Yeah, just I want to open up the floor to y'all's questions now. I mean, we can talk about anything we want. Like, if you wanted to talk about MMOs, great, or just the video games in general, or something private, that's fine too.
Yeah, I think one of the
this
places,
is so
Asma and I
cool.
have a bunch of questions, obviously, that we want to ask, but I think one of the craziest things about starting to play Final Fantasy for both of us is just how different the communities felt. And we felt incredibly welcomed from everybody, obviously over here with you guys, but also the community itself. We felt very welcomed. And we're curious if with the giant surge of new players coming into the game, if you felt like it's changed the community at all, or how you felt it's impacted what already existed.
やっぱりこうレディットの反応とかを見てるとやっぱり違うゲームを長く遊んできた人たちっていうのがこう一気に流れてくると当然それぞれのコミュニティで文法とか大事にしてきたものってちょっと違うと思うんですよ。だからそれによっていい意味で比較が例えば向こうにこういうシステムがあったけどこっちにはないんだね、
so cool.
こっちにはあるけど向こうにはないんだねっていうのがこうポジティブに混ざっていく今タイミングなんじゃないかなと思っていて、それによって両方がよりよく発展するきっかけに両方というか例えば今ニューワールドも出たのでMMO 全体というかゲーム全体がまたコミュニティが混ざることで全体がホットになるっていう今タイミングだと思ってるので、それ自体はすごい面白いし、もしかしたら小さい混乱はちょっと起きてるのかもしれないけどゲーム全体にとってはとてもポジティブなことだと思ってるんでニコニコしながら見てます。
So just looking at some of the posts in Reddit, I know some people have moved over from other games and a surge of players came from...
I need to step into Reddit chat. I'm a Reddit noob.
Like experiencing other games coming into Final Fantasy 14. And so naturally we do see like a difference in the way they like communicate, some of the grammar that they use in their language, as well as some of the things that players cherish and feel is important, differ. And I have seen some comparisons being made, I mean, in a good way. Like, oh, I noticed there's a game system like this on this game, but I never saw it in the other game, and vice versa. So I feel like there is a
Asmund
sort
seems
of
so different. Is it like, is he nervous or is he like being respectful? He's sitting different for sure, right?
positive sort of mixing of players, and I'm hoping that this will allow for
I
like
would be nervous
both
too, to
sides
be
of the
honest.
games, or like both games to um
Yeah, he looks
get
really
more hyped
polite
up
and
and
respectful
build more
right now.
excitement just in general. I know New World was released very recently, and that's
You know what?
also kind of getting attention. And by having multiple MMOs and having the communities kind of mingling with each other, mixing in with each other, will allow for just MMOs in general to get really hot again. I'm hoping. So it's really interesting to see this. And of course, there are small skirmishes here and there, confusion happening, but I feel like it is affecting the game positively, like overall. And so, like, yeah, I have a grin on my face for sure. I'm smiling throughout this.
We certainly have been too. It's been a real pleasure to try and play the game. And I wanted to ask also, how do you feel like because it hasn't just really been Final Fantasy, it's been other games, like you mentioned, New World, and then Ashes of Creation, and Crowfall, and RuneScape, OSRS, World of Warcraft. And we're really starting to see, it seems like, a resurgence of MMOs in general. And do you think that it's going to be a situation where a rising tide floats all ships, and everybody just kind of all of the games grow and become better because of the competition against each other? Or do you feel like there's going to be a resurgence of MMOs in general? Because for the past, I mean, really,
I think
majority of the
competition's good.
decade, it seems like
It pushes
MMOs
people to
haven't
work
really
harder.
been as popular as they used to be in the mid 2000s.
どれだけのタイトルが粘り強くアップデートしてみんなを楽しませようとできるかどうかっていうところが結構この先がポイントだと思ってます、まず。
So first and foremost, I think it kind of depends on whether these titles will be able to like keep at and be tenacious about updating the game and making sure that the players continue to enjoy the content. And then he has more to say.
MMO のローンチはめちゃくちゃ面白いんですよ。バグも含めてログイン戦争って呼ばれるログインできるできないも含めてめちゃくちゃ
Shut up, Rena.
盛り上がるんですよ。みんなわからない手探りでいろんなことが起こる。だから本当にめちゃくちゃ面白い。でもやっぱローンチを過ぎた後どれだけそのテンションが維持してもらえるのかっていうところがとても重要なので、やっぱり今はそのいろんなタイトルのローンチが近いタイミングでこう来てるのですごく全体が盛り上がって見えると思うんだけど、本当の意味で MMO がもう一回バーって盛り上がるかどうかはやっぱこの先やっぱ半年1年っていうところに結構かかってくるのかなと思ってます。
And so, of course, with an MMO launch, it's always very interesting to watch just the behaviors, like with all the bugs and issues that they find, or we call it login wars, like people stuck in queues for login, whether or not you can actually access the game, is something that's actually kind of exciting watching a new MMO launch, and everybody's kind of like looking for their way, kind of feeling their way through the dark. And it's very interesting, but I think when it starts to calm down after a little bit, and if the game is able to kind of maintain that momentum, I think is very dependent on whether or not an MMO survives. Because right now, of course, yes, we have been seeing a lot of different MMOs kind of releasing or launching close to each other. And it does seem like MMOs overall is showing excitement, and just everybody is getting excited about it. But I think the real test is going to happen like 6 months down the line, or up to a year down the line.
で一個だけすごい重要だと思ってるゲームデザインのポイントがあって、今の世の中やっぱりみんないろんなものを触りたい、触っていいと思うんだけど、ゲームがこうコミュニティもそうなんだけど、一つのゲームにこう縛ろうとするみたいなことを強くやり始めると結構苦しくなると思ってます。いろんなものを今やっぱりエンタメってそういう時代になったので、そこが結構重要なポイントなんじゃないかなと思うので、まあ、どういうゲームデザインでそれぞれがこう突き進んでいくのかっていうところはすごい興味深く見てます。
And I did want to add, with game design for titles like these, I know players will always want to experience many different things, like a variation of different elements. But also at the same time, there are very strong-minded community that tend to want to tie people down and kind of chain them down in some instances. And I worry about like the pressure that might place on a player. And so with entertainment, there are just so many options nowadays. And so I think that's an important point to keep in mind about just there is so many things available that we allow for that freedom to kind of experience the different elements out there and what kind of game design we are able to sort of provide for those players to keep their interest.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm really curious about overall when you look at MMOs, because making an MMO to me, like my hat goes off to all of you because it seems like an absolute nightmare. The amount of resources and to actually be able to distribute something, I feel like one of the things that we've seen happen to so many MMOs is they have to fall back on mass appeal, and you get in this weird area where the game is ultimately being made for players who hate the game and don't want to play the game. And now as I start to look at games like even like New World, it's much more focused on a different aspect and it's more one tracked and trying to attract a different type of player. Do you feel like game design and the way that MMOs are actually created now, there is more of an opening for niche MMORPGs instead of these giant mass appeal Frankenstein monsters where everything's slapped in, none of it's great, it's all watered down? Or do you feel like MMOs are always going to shoulder that burden and just require too many resources?
そういう意味だと MMO って作る人が結構決まってたんですよ。そのベテランで MMO が好きでっていう人たちがまあ MMO を作るみたいな時代が結構長く続いてたんですけど、最近の作品ってやっぱり MMO で育った
Yeah,
ゲ
his
ー
ring
ム
gives
デ
him
ザイナ
all
ー
the
たちが
stats, man.
自分はこういう MMO を
I
作
need
り
to
たい
get
って
some
いう
rings.
新しいチャレンジを今始めているので、なのでいろん
I don't
な
think I
パタ
can rock
ーン
rings
の
like
ゲ
he
ームデザ
does.
インの MMO が登
I
場
would
しよ
look
うとして
weird
るっ
with
て
rings,
ことは
no?
めちゃくちゃいいことだと思います。まず
He looks good with them.
Yeah, I think it also lends to back in the day, people who created MMOs tend to be very similar. Like they love MMOs and they're veterans, and it's kind of limited. But nowadays, I am seeing more and more developers who grew up playing these MMOs, and they have their own vision of, oh, I want to make this kind of game going into it. And so I think that's what's contributing to these different styles of MMOs that are coming out. And I believe that that's a wonderful thing.
ただ MMO ってやっぱりゲームであると同時にサービスでもあるので、やっぱりインターフェースだったりとか、その短時間で遊べるコンテンツがあるかどうかとか、そういうなんか他のサービスに存在しているものの要求レベルが非常に高いので、まあ、そこに関してはやっぱりもう負けずに、もしくは今足りなくても着実に積み上げていくってことがとても大切なので、やっぱりこう資本を裏で持ってる人たちがそういったゲームデザイナーたちをどれだけこう応援してあげられるか、お金を切らさずにね、まあ、そこも実は MMO を成功させる要因のうちにはとても大切なの
I
で、
play on Cactar,
まあ、そこを
Aether, Valid.
こうバックボーン側にいる人たちが支えてくれると嬉しいなとは思います。
And so, but that being said, of course, while MMOs are a video game and a form of entertainment, it's at the same time a service that we are providing to players. And so we have to be careful about, okay, what kind of interface are we providing? Is there content that players can just jump on for a short amount of time and just jump off? And just the level that is expected in terms of service that we provide through these games are quite high, and the expectation is there. So I think at the same time, like the creative aspect of it is important, but at the same time, we also need to make sure we have the sort of resources available to kind of build upon that experience. Even if you're lacking now, as long as you can continue and to sustain yourself, you can build on it and glean more experience. So I think it also requires for there to be good backing for investors to kind of love the product and sort of back up those creative minds so that they can continue to sustain themselves as well, kind of having them as a backbone to support
Oh,
those
gosh.
creators.
ただ繰り返しになるけど、その
They have a
新し
really
いゲ
good
ーム
base.
特にニューワールドもそうだ
And they're
け
adding very
ど
good
僕らはめちゃ
content.
くちゃ刺激になるので、今はちょっとエンドウォーカーのマスターで忙しすぎて触れてないけど、終わったらすぐ触って刺激を受けて、また14に新しいコンテンツを考える時のスパイスにさせてもらいたいので、すごい楽しみにしてます。
But I don't mean to repeat myself, but with New World being out, that is definitely a great source
Oh.
of like stimulation that we can get.
New what?
Of course, right
now?
now we're on Endwalker and we're trying to master up and go to market. But once that has settled down, I'm hoping that we get a chance to get our hands on it as well, to gain that sort of new experience so that it'll
I'm just
add
memeing.
some spice to our creativity as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things about seeing all these MMOs is kind of seeing a lot of the good ideas cross-pollinate and kind of be shared between the different games and everything. And whenever you're talking about the MMO and the game itself as really a service and as something that people are effectively consumers for, one thing that's always been in a balance with MMOs is the difference between a solo player and the difference between a group player, and also about punishing content as well. And how do you kind of how do you draw the line between making content for just the individual solo player and still keeping it in the feel of an MMO, and also with punishing content and time, basically things that make you spend more time playing the game, things like running back to your body, things like repairing your gear. Many of the
Dude, they have 10 out of 10 on save time. Sorry, my cat keeps walking on my table. The stones, where you get to teleport around the Aether, that's amazing. And while I have to fly around, or flight path that takes like 10 minutes, spins you around the whole city, like, right? That takes forever. And then when you die on raid, you just spawn back, there's a shortcut, or you're right in front of the boss. I respect that a lot. This game doesn't want to waste your time. Or like that.
I think the legacy features and old school feel of MMOs, and not necessarily just feel, but the features of MMOs that really kind of make them take a lot more time. Final Fantasy, it seems like, has shed a lot of those different features, and you're able to go directly to the boss. There's not really a lot of trash mobs and everything like that. And so basically, what is the balance that you're trying to strike between making the MMO a super ease of access solo player experience versus a more punishing and involved MMO experience that I think people have come to, in a way, expect with MMOs? And I think in a good thing, in a good way, it's been a breath of fresh air. Final Fantasy didn't have many of those things.
そうですね、僕自身がもともとかなりのヘビーゲーマーでヘビー MMO ユーザーなので、僕が好きなコンテンツばっかり作ってるとガッチガチの MMO にまずなっちゃうと思ってます。
So I have to admit, I am actually a heavy MMO gamer. So if I were to just make stuff that I felt was like good substantial content, it's going to be like one of your typical like super hardcore
Savix.
MMO.
Voice. Thank you
ま
for the 5 months.
あちょっと下手したらね、仕事を辞めてた可能性もあるぐらいなので
One one false step and I may have just left my job, you know?
もし今僕が MMO まあゴリゴリやってた時に今のようにストリーミングっていうことがあったら僕仕事を辞めてた可能性が非常に高いと思います。
I'm sure if streaming had been available when I was really into like obsessively playing these MMOs, I would have like not gone to an office job. I would have chosen the path to become a streamer.
It's a good thing it wasn't.
Good thing it
He still has his hair because he didn't end up streaming.
でもまあその中でやっぱり MMO を遊んでくる中でやっぱ友達になった人たちって必ずしもヘビーゲーマーばっかりじゃなかった。日々フレンドとチャットをすることを楽しみにその世界に来てる人たち、風景を見て回りたくてそのためにレベリングをしている人たちで、自分がすごい難しいレイドもしくはもう何百時間もかけなきゃ取れないようなウェポンを取って帰って
Yeah,
き
if
た時
Yoshi-P
に
was born a little bit
まるで
later,
自
he would have
分
been
の
a
ことの
streamer.
ように喜んでくれるフレンドだっ
But
た
he wouldn't
り
have made FF.
すげえ武器あるちょっと見せてほしいってそういう人たちがいて初
Or
め
made
て
FF14 a better place, that's what I meant.
世界って共有されてるし、自分ももっと強くなりたい、上手くなりたい、すごい武器取ってきてみんなに見せたいっていう欲求が生まれると思ってるので、僕にとってはなんか全部がとても大事なので、そのすごいヘビーユーザーって声が大きいからよく聞こえてくるし、どうしてもそっちの意見にこう引っ張られがちなんだけど、そうじゃない世界を支えてる本当にたくさんの普段は声をそんなに上げない人たちによって僕らヘビーゲーマーゲームの中でゴリゴリレイド行ってるような人たちも支えられてるっていうことをすごい学んできたというか教えられてきたので、僕はどっちに対しても欲張りなので、もうどっちに対してもコンテンツを提供するっていう以外の答えがないんです。まず
But yeah, but while I was playing a whole lot of MMOs, I would meet other players, of course, and you know, you realize that some of them may just come into the game just to chat with the other players. They might just want to tour around the areas, just look at the environments, just admire the view, and that's the only reason why they level their character. Or some of them may be those hardcore raiders that want to go into punishing content, spend hundreds of hours to get that super cool shiny weapon, you know. But then you also had the friend who's like, oh, I love what weapon you got. Let me see. I have no idea what content you went into, but that's a really cool looking
Dude,
weapon.
this translator is really
And
good.
so there's just so many different people, so many different kinds of people playing MMOs. And once you see all those people there, that's when you first realize that, oh, this world is being shared by a whole bunch of other people. And by looking at the other players, you realize, well, I want to be like them. I want to get stronger. I do want to get better. You know, that weapon is really cool. I really want to go and get it. And it's just everything is so important. Like we don't want to neglect people just because they're casual or just because they're heavy raiders, you know. Of course, a lot of the vocal people tend to be the heavy gamers, I have noticed. So I know our opinions kind of get influenced by those louder voices, so to speak. But I think we also have to understand that our world is being supported by not just them, but there are a whole group of other people who enjoy the game in their own ways.
I
They
think this
may
game
not
has
be as
everything, chat. What
vocal
do they not
as some
have?
of our players, but you know, the world is not just like me with the heavy raiders and the super hardcore people, but there are different people supporting this world. And so I mean, I'm greedy. I want to satisfy everybody.
Ass slider? I mean, that's something that, yeah, I don't know. We don't need that, do we? PvP? There is PvP. There is PvP. It's just not that popular. I did 1v1s yesterday and I had tons of fun. I was 1v1ing for like an hour or two. I don't think they need to care too much about PvP. PvP makes people toxic. Like, I felt it too. It makes you toxic, and PvP community is usually kind of really mean. they're mean to each other. Like if they lose, they're like, you suck or whatever. You know what I mean? Not going into detail, but if you play League, Overwatch, you know the toxic people in your team, the enemy team. WoW PvP, same thing. Everyone's like super toxic, man. You do have fun in PvP, but it gets pretty heated sometimes. I don't know. Everything is 10 out of 10 in the game. I don't think they need to put too much thought into PvP.
For those who want to go in and hardcore raid. So I don't know. That's the first thing I would say. I want to deliver content for both groups.
なので14の場合はおおむね奇数パッチ、メジャーアップデートの奇数パッチはできるだけカジュアル寄りにしよう。で偶数パッチはレイドを入れて、ハードコアレイダーたちに楽しんでもらおう。でも例えばだけど次のパッチ 6.1 ではカジュアルそのよりのパッチ 6.1 に次の新しいアルティメットを入れるので、レイダーはもうそれを楽しみにしてくれればいい。メインストーリーが終わってアルティメットの新しいのをクリアしたらワウのレイドをやりに行ってもよりレイドをもっとやりたいんだったら他のゲームのレイドをやってもらえばいいと思ってて、でまたその次の例えば 6.2 が来たらよし新しいレイド来たから戻ってくるぞ。もう僕は今の時代はそれでいいと思ってるので、まあとにかく両方に向けて頑張るけど14で足りないなら他のゲームをその間プレイしてくれればいいんじゃないかなって。
So with that in mind, with Final Fantasy XIV, we have these major patch updates, and every odd patches, we do implement some more casual-ish content. And then in the even numbered patches, we incorporate the raids, the high-end raids, so that the hardcore raiders can enjoy that content. But while we will be implementing some casual, skewing casual content in patch 6.1, we do intend on implementing the new ultimate raid. So those hardcore battle raiders have something to look forward to in that patch. And so I feel that you have the freedom, like once you've finished off the story and you want some challenging content, of course, please go into the ultimate content. But once that's done and you're still looking for a challenge, and if you want to go to like an encounter in WoW to kind of test your mettle, that's perfectly fine, I think. And then once a new raid is implemented in 6.2, then you're more than welcome to come back here as well. You know, I do want to satisfy both ends of the spectrum in terms of casual versus hardcore, but at the same time, if players do feel that they're not quite satisfied with just Final Fantasy XIV, I think we have the freedom for them to kind of explore other games if needs be.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things about a game like that doesn't have retention mechanisms, is that it doesn't feel like it's a job or a chore or anything like that. So I very much appreciate that, and I think many players do as well. And whenever you're talking about challenging content, I think that probably the pinnacle of challenging content is going to be the ultimate fights. And I was curious if there are a few very difficult, as I've learned recently, challenges for solo players, namely Necromancer and the Heaven on High as well, the Lone Hero title. Are there other plans to add? I believe that there's one 4-man Savage raid. Are there more plans to add more difficult types of content and more heavy challenges that are aimed towards a smaller group of players, like maybe 4 or 1 player?
これは結構昔から特に北米を中心にもらうフィードバックなんですけど、いよいよちょっと何かしら計画し始めてはいます。詳しいことはエンドウォーカーリリースした後にプロデュースされたライブでお知らせしようと思ってますけど、可能性は上がってきたかなとだけお伝えしておきます。
Oh, he meant okay.
You know, I actually get this a lot, namely from North American players. It seems the desire for a smaller group and challenging content is quite high. So
are Americans more independent, or like we like solo content that much?
Feedback is acknowledged, and we are trying to see if we can plan for something in that vein But I'm afraid I can't divulge on the details at this time. We do plan to do another live stream after Endwalker
Yeah, no
releases and
friends.
things
I
have
don't have
settled down.
friends.
We will be doing what's called a letter from the producer live. So I'm hoping that we can share some details and updates on that. But the possibility for sure is there.
Yeah, I think in that vein too, one of the questions that I had, giant insurgents of new players coming into the game, like just a whole bunch of new players coming into the game. How much does it affect this current expansion, or how much of it was already so far along or already done that there might not be an impact?
エンドウォーカー自体に関しては後者ですね。特に影響を受けてません。というよりスケジュール的に影響を受けてる余裕がないって言った方が正しいですかね。まず。
So first of all, I think it would be the latter, specifically for Endwalker, only because we don't have any wiggle room to like be impacted by external forces
Ask a question. We're watching a video, man. Yeah, I'm just sitting here waiting for my turn to speak
that have
so I
come
could ask
recently.
question.
ただそのやっぱりこう新しい人たちが入ってくるっていうことは今までのプレイヤーとの価値観と違った価値観で14に接してくれる人たちが増えるっていうことでもあるので、その人たちが14をプレイした時に何を感じるのかっていうのは僕らはどうしても最新のコンテンツを作っているので、過去のコンテンツをフレッシュな気持ちで遊ぶっていうのは結構難しい。だから今の14をゼロからスタートした時に何を感じるのか、それをどう発信してくれるのかっていうのはすごい僕らにとって大
Translate,
切な
please.
の
She
で、
does
気
a
づ
better
きとし
job,
て。
but I
でそ
understand
れによっ
both.
て、もっとテこ入れをするべきだな、もっとメンテナンスをして、もっとこう間口というか入り口を広げる方がいいんだなみたいなのはすごい最近SNS とかを見てても発見があるので、とても楽しいですね。
But that being said, with new people joining the game, I do understand that some of them might have different values or a different perspective on the game. And so I think it allows for us to have this new insight because of the new players that come in here. And I'm very curious to know, like, what are these new people thinking about as they start Final Fantasy XIV from scratch? Because we can't go back to old content to get like a new perspective or a new understanding
new.
on something. It only happens when you
It's a
like
great
first
game.
encounter it, I think. So
Okay,
whenever
new people input. When I first started FF, I was a little lost. I think it's mainly because I was too used to WoW UI. So the UI was a little bit hard to get used to, but I love the UI now. I'm very used to it. I will say ARR was a little bit slow for me, and the dungeons felt really easy. But starting from Stormblood, the raids and okay, sorry, the coil is not hard. The coil is not easy, but like when you're leveling, you do those dungeons. Those are like super simple. But then moving on to Stormblood, I feel like the raids and dungeons were so much more fun for me. But overall, the game's amazing. It has everything. I don't even know what I would ask for. And while we ask for a lot of stuff, right? I make videos asking for stuff, but in this game, I feel like there's not much. I know a lot of people are asking for more housing room. There's like a limit number for housing. I know that's something different. Maybe they'll work on that. I know the hardcore raiders, they only have 3 raid, and these guys been playing since like the first ultimate raid, right? So for them, they have everything on farm, so they would crave for more new raid, right? I understand that POV, but they are getting a new one now, right? For me, like since I just jumped in, all the ultimates like very brand new. I have to learned it, cleared the 2 legend Uwu thingy, Uwu and Ukab. But for the people that are like raiding from day 1, those guys cleared it, and they would want more content, right? More raid content, as per se. But I think the game is 10 out of 10 for me. For reals, 10 out of 10. They have everything.
I do see
I can't wait for
like new
Endwalker.
players joining in and seeing what kind of information they're sharing with their community or what kind of posts they're making on social, like their sentiment and their kind of opinions are very interesting and I'm
All you do is ERP? I do ERP. Extreme raid progression, yes. How did you know? How did you know? I love Final Fantasy.
very curious to see what kind of reactions they are getting seeing this content for the first time. And that actually allows for us to kind of identify any areas or pain points that might require our attention. Are there any areas that we need to go back in and sort of adjust or do we need to perform maintenance on certain elements in our games? And so it allows for us to kind of open up that funnel to welcome more people in.
No way,
So
whoops.
it is definitely a discovery. It's great to see like new players sharing their opinion over their social channels to see what they're talking about.
でどっちかというと1個だけそのベテランの光の戦士たちにどちらかというとお願いがあって、まあ僕は「ファイナルファンタジー14」のコミュニティ、まあプレイヤーの皆さんは本当に情熱的だし、みんなとてもニュービーに優しいし、本当に世界一のコミュニティだって自信を持って胸を張って誇りに思ってるんだけど、そのみんな新しく始めて迷いながら自由に楽しく遊んでるので、もう先回りして「いやいやあれをやった方がいいよ、これをやった方がいいよ、いやもうここはこうした方がいいよ、いやいいんだよ、みんな自由に遊んでるんだから頼む、困ったんだ助けてくれ」って言われたら助けてあげてほしい。でも先回りしてその自由な楽しみ方まで奪わないでほしいので、そこはどうかちょっと離れた位置から温かい目で見ててあげてくれるとすごい嬉しい。みんながそうだというわけじゃない。でも一部14が好きでより楽しんでもらいたいからっていう気持ちが強すぎてそれを言う人たちがいるので、それはちょっと距離を置いてあげてほしい。そこだけかな。
But if I could add one more thing, and I think this is more directed at veteran players who have been with Final Fantasy XIV for much longer. But of course, our community, I am very proud of our community. They are very welcoming. They're very kind.
So
whenever a
welcoming.
newbie joins in, they're quick to help.
So helpful.
And I feel like we have the best community, one of the best communities in the world. But and I see new players coming in and of course they want to enjoy that freedom of not knowing, like and doing what they want to do and kind of.
I will explain that for you, miss. You're doing a fantastic job. But yeah, you guys are so welcoming. The community is so welcoming. 10 out of 10. I think when I came into FF, that's what I fell in love with, the community. They're so wholesome and nice and helpful. I know there are some people that like farm KW, but those guys are bad as well. I was gonna add on, but I forgot now. Oh, I was gonna say, I love the fact that I came into this game. Dude, he looks so kawaii. Look at his face. I was gonna say, oh shit, what happened?
Helping them.
I was gonna say, I'm glad I came into FF without knowing anything. Or I watched one video which was about PvP. And then I came in, so I didn't know about the insane trailers. I didn't know anything about the game. And then being able to hear all the helpful things from you guys, that was amazing. Because when I play WoW, it's the other way around. Where I'm playing my Red Paladin and everyone comes in, Savix, what's your talent? Can we see your conduits? Can we see your tree line? Every time I'm like helping, but then in here, like I'm the one getting help. It feels good. I like that. I like that a lot.
And I feel that they're kind of taking away from that freedom. So I hope they distance themselves just a little bit so that they're not overwhelming our newbies. I know they just love the game and they want for the players to experience, like get the best experience as quickly as possible. But you know, I feel that their passion is just a little overwhelming at times. So I hope that our veteran players are allow for our new players to kind of experience some of this this freedom of discovery, you know.
Sometimes you have to let the new tank open with plunge and not know how to use shirk.
I've learned a lot of things by doing them wrong. So yes, I fully understand that.
そうですよね。タンクにたまにはそのシャーク
そうです
で
よね。
ヘイトを取るのじゃなくて、プランジでいきなり飛び込んで間違えさせるのもいいと思うんですよ。で、アズモンさんもそう、まさに失敗して覚えることもあるので。
そうなの。でも2人とも覚えておいてほしいのは、本当にみんな多分2人のことが好きで14が好きだから、より楽しんでもらいたい、よりこの先に待ってる冒険にスムーズにたどり着いてほしいっていう思いが募りすぎて、いやいやもうクリアするんだったらもう早くこうしてやればクリアできるよって言いたく多分なっちゃうんだよね。でもやっぱり楽しむ、ゲームなんだから、エンタメなんだから楽しむことが最優先なので、その声ははいはいって言って、楽しむことをぜひ最優先にしてほしい。それはもう14だけじゃなくて他のゲームを遊ぶ時ももちろんそうだし、やっぱりなんか本当鎖に縛られると本当つまんなく
Yeah,
なっちゃう
Asmon
ので、
does look like
それだ
himself
けは
now.
お願い
At the
したいです。
start, he was like standing straight, sitting
And I'm
like
sure
two
some
hands
of
on
these,
his
and I know
lap.
people who have played with you two as well. They just love your presence there, and they just want to be so helpful, and they really want you to get ahead and see the adventure that lies ahead of you. But some of them get a little too excited about like, oh no, you need to do this in order to get through this content more efficiently and whatever. But I want to tell them like, dude, it's just entertainment. You're supposed to enjoy the journey here. So I don't know if you ever come across people being a little too enthusiastic in their helping, just kindly disregard them and just kind of smile and nod or whatever. And I hope that players, you included, and our existing community too, I hope everybody just prioritizes having fun in Eorzea. And I mean, not just in Final Fantasy 14, actually, with any game. I don't like it when people chain each other down with weird.
I'm laughing because whenever I try, or I think I tried PvP earlier in the earlier stages, and when I'm first learning, like I just want to practice my rotation and play, but then somebody comes and he's like, "Oh, press this for this and that and this, and then check out that and this." I'm like, I'm not listening to anything. I just say, but I don't care. I just want to practice on my own and learn, right? But yeah, if people don't ask for help, I don't know if you should like start saying everything. You know what I mean? If they're asking like, "Oh, can you show me this?" Sure. Blah 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 blah. Do this, do that, right? But then, if they're there like trying to do their stuff, just let them try, right? You don't need to like come and try to, yeah.
Politics or like
Yeah, they just try
awkwardness.
to essay to you.
It gets a little boring, if everything is in a set pattern, like if everybody's kind of restricted and limited to like my way or the highway, so I just want people to just enjoy the games.
Yeah, I will say that definitely enjoying it a lot. I know people like to joke around about me like stalling, but it's just my immersion. I get so into all the things that are happening at all the times, even if it's just a bard that happens to be standing next to me while I'm walking over to a quest while I'm doing MSQ. But one of the questions I really wanted to ask is just the open communication that you guys have, even us being here right now, the community that Asmon and I originally came from, that was not the case, not at all, even though we were part of it for a very long time. I understand why different companies have different policies on things like that, but I do personally feel like the community being so incredible in this game is a reflection in a lot of ways of how open you guys are to talking to that community. Is there ever any hesitation or nerves? Like what actually allowed you guys to get to this place where you have such open communication?
I love
with all
open
the players?
communication.
本当にそうですよ。パーティーでプレイしている時も、時々動きが遅いから突っ込まれるんですよ。でもそれは自分がゲームに没入していて、ここを味わっているっていう証拠なんです。MSQ を、メインシナリオを進めていく中で、なんか銀融詩人に惹かれてついていくのも、それだと思うんですよね。で、実際にそのコミュニティのお話があったかと思いますけれども、本当にコミュニティとのコミュニケーションが非常に風通しの良いものを。
結構答えは実はシンプルで、まずそもそも14がオリジナルで大失敗してる。でそれを僕は後から入って立て直さなきゃいけないっていう状態だったので、当然ものすごい怒ってる人たちに対して やり直しますっていう時に謝ることも大事だし、まあそれをどう挽回するかっていうのをちゃんと伝えていくことっていうのは、まあ、当たり前だと思うんですよ、ミスをしたので。なのでそれをちゃんとしようっていうのを会社に伝えて、まあやれるんだったらもういいよ、好きにやっていいからって言ってもらったんで、まあそれをやってるっていうのが一つ。
I think the answer might be simple, more simple than you imagine. First, Final Fantasy XIV had a horrible launch. 1.0 was quite a failure, and Yoshida, or I was brought in to kind of rebuild it after we had fallen flat. And
I've seen the
so, of
interview.
course, the players who were looking forward
Or
to
the
a new
documentary.
Final
That was a good
Fantasy
documentary.
MMO were extremely angry. And so the first steps that we took was to apologize to them and then show our commitment to improving and correcting our ways and how we're going to do that, and be clear in our objectives and how we're going to make sure we're relaunching. So I felt that that was just natural, or as a matter of fact, to do this first and foremost. So I consulted corporate and explained to them, hey, I want to have an open communication with the community, let them know what I want to do, and they seem to be okay with it. So that was the first step I took.
でもう一個は、まあ、僕がやっぱりそのウルティマオンライン以降ずっと MM を遊んできててすごい残念だなと思ってたのが、僕は例えばウルティマオンラインめちゃくちゃ好き、大好きで、まあ、プレイしてる人たちもみんなそうで、おそらく当時、まあ、スタートオリジンの皆さんも
ごめんなさい。吉田さんの今のコメントを訳す前に念のため確認させていただきたいんですけれども、アルティマオンラインとオリジンというのは2つ別々のタイトルですか？
あ、違います。ウルティマを作ってた会社がオリジンシステムズですね。はい。はい。すみません。はい。知識不足でした。はい。Sorry, I was just double checking something. So of course, the first step was to apologize and to make sure we are talking.
If I was a translator, my head would blow up right there. That was so many. She had to double check.
To our players about what we wanted to rectify. And for example, I love Ultimate Online, and I love the game. I love them so much, and I'm sure the other players who played Ultima Online really loved the game as well. And I'm sure Origin felt that they wanted to make their game better and they wanted to improve upon it. But for some reason, from how I perceived it, it was like developers versus consumers, and it didn't feel like we were collaborating. It felt like we were enemies almost. I mean, we both love the games. The consumers want to play.
That's Blizzard right now. They're like enemies with the players. They're like having a war right now, turning all the paintings into fruit baskets. Oh my god. Actually having a war. The PvP community, they have a war with the devs. They do not give us what we want. None of us are happy.
A good game. The developers want to build a good game, but for some reason it was either we're fighting against bugs and issues, or we're fighting against Origin, and it was very sad. And once time has elapsed, it would have more MMOs would have come out, and like it just felt such a shame that both parties really just have love for the game, but it just felt like an opposing position against each other. And so whenever Origin would try to let players know about a new patch that's being applied, it didn't get communicated properly. And so I felt that was such an unfortunate situation. So I was always thinking about, if I were ever to make my own MMO and to build a community, I would love for a better means of communication. And that chance came with the rebuild of Final Fantasy XIV. And so I had my chance to kind of build my ideal sort of environment. And so, yeah, I tried my best to convey what exactly I'm trying to do with the game, just so that the players understood and know the intentions behind it all.
Go ahead. Oh, was he done? Sorry, I wasn't.
すみません。大丈夫ですか？
大丈夫よ。どうぞどうぞ。
Yes, yes, he was finished.
Okay. Yeah. You completely nailed it there. About the developers and the players being against each other. That is exactly the way that I have felt with not just one game, but
Dude, exactly what I said. Exactly what I said, man. This is all WoW players, man.
many games before. And I think that also the type of more honest and direct and personal communication between the developers and the players, and
I love that.
more so the shared love of the game between the developers and the players, and being able to even play with the players. I know that Yoshida has his own character, and he sometimes plays with actual just random people in the community, and I think that's beautiful. That's amazing. And that
So
is just, I think, probably a big reason why the community at large is more positive too. And I think it is because of that more open line of communication with the developers.
本当におっしゃる通りだと思います。MMO に限らずですけれども、その開発対プレイヤーというその敵対関係というのは、本当にその一つの作品だけじゃないんですよね。そういった状況だなって感じた時があったので、本当にそのプレイヤーに向けて、その真摯に向き合って、ダイレクトに、そしてその個人的というか、そのパーソナルに情報を共有する。で、かつ、その
I just want to say, getting out of WoW, I felt like I got out of a really toxic relationship that I needed to leave many years ago. It feels good. Not being worried. Oh my god, it's Monday. I haven't done all my chores. You guys know what the chores are. I say it every stream. Dude, that feels great not having that. Like, needing to finish the chores. Yeah.
お互いにゲームが好きだという部分というのが非常に大事だと思います。プレイヤーと一緒に遊ぶという要素も非常に素晴らしいと思っていて、結構吉田さんもそのYoshi-P散歩などで、プレイヤーとランダムなプレイヤーと一緒に遊ぶなどしてこられたのは本当に美しいなって思って、おそらくそういうところがコミュニティをポジティブで前向きな姿勢にさせてくれているのかなと思います。そのオープンなコミュニケーションが。
なんだろう、僕やっぱりいろんな MMO でやっぱりフレンドから聞く言葉、まあ自分自身でも思ったことありますけど、開発こいつら自分が作ったゲーム遊んでんのかよみたいなやっぱ思っちゃうことがあるんですよ。でやっぱり僕らもあなたたちと同じように、まあ実際そうなので、僕だってアラガン・トムソン一生懸命集めて一生懸命レイドに通って練習して上手くなろうとしてる努力ってやってるんだから、見てもらった方がより安心できるし、もう本当にそれだけですよ。ただ僕は負けず嫌いなので、やっぱり黒魔同士メインにしてるなら世界一のやっぱ黒魔同士になりたいと思ってプレイはしてるので、まあだから一緒ですよ。楽しくゲームやってるっていう姿を、まあお互い見れた方がよりね、楽しいし安心なのでね。
For sure, and I've heard my friends talk about this, and I feel it sometimes too. With some MMOs, they wonder, do these developers even play their own game? But with us, like a lot of the developers on Final Fantasy XIV are warriors of light ourselves. We go to the raids, we collect our elegant tomestones to exchange them for our weapons, and we are working hard. Like we are players ourselves, and I think it's just best to show that
one game their
let the
developers
people know
played
that
their own
we
game.
love our
Holy
game.
moly.
And I myself am a very competitive person, and I main a black mage. And so I want to be the world's best black mage, you know?
Wow.
So I mean, like,
I love
that's
that. That is
just
crazy.
it. I think it's just the shared love for the game and just playing together.
だから固定じゃなく、どんなプレイヤーのパーティーに急にランダムに飛び込んでも、俺はちゃんとどの場所でもどのタクティクスでもプレイできるぞっていうために。
Dude, that's such a burn. That's such a burn coming from Yoshi-P. Did the devs play their own game? Damn, get roasted. I don't know what company that is, but damn.
家に帰ったらずっと14やっ てたりするんで、
That is a
いやもう僕は
roast.
本当楽しいですよ14の仕事は。もうなんかあんま仕事だと思ってないので。
So I don't play with just my static. I sometimes queue up for like a random group, and no matter what strategy they try to pull or no matter what position they do, I want to give it my best. And so I want to learn these strategies. I go home and continuously play Final Fantasy 14. So it is a lot of fun being part of this team. You know, it's to the point where I don't really feel like it's work.
That's such a nice thing to hear. One of my questions is definitely what other games do you sometimes try to play to draw on inspiration? I remember watching some interviews way back at like different things like the No Pixel documentary and things like that, and hearing about some of the things that you got from Mr. Pandaria, for example. Are there any current games that you sometimes draw inspiration from?
ちなみにその他のゲームなども遊ばれますか？で、その遊んだ時にその影響を受けたりすることはありますか？結構過去のインタビュー、ノークリップのドキュメンタリーであったり、あとミスト・オブ・パンダリアの影響を受けたなどのお話を伺っているので、どういったゲームに刺激を受けているのかなというのは気になりました。
いやもうなんか上げたらもうそれだけ多分一日中ライブストリーム一緒にできるぐらいなので、全部はちょっと難しいですけど。
Man, if I were to list each and every single one, I think I can do like a full-on live stream show, like an all-day show. Gosh.
僕にとってやっぱり大きいのはウルティマオンライン、ディアブロ、
Dude, she's so good at translating. She says, man. She put in everything he
ウォー
said.
クラフト、エヴァークエスト、
That's so
ダークエイジ
good.
もキャメロット、この辺りは多分僕が技術者としても、ゲームデザイナーとしてもベースになってるものとしてはとてつもなく大きいタイトルだと思います。
But if I were to bring up a few, of course, Ultima Online, Diablo, World of Warcraft, EverQuest, Dark Age of Camelot. So those are games that not only as like a game designer and an engineer, but yeah, those titles are very much an influence to me.
もちろんスタンダーローンのゲームだと、ファイナルファンタジーシリーズとドラゴンクエストはもうやっぱり日本の開発者としても絶対というか、まあ、僕の世代はもう絶対なので、それはまあ当たり前で。
And then as for standalone titles, of course, the Final Fantasy series and the Dragon Quest series is just standard for any Japanese developer out there.
あとはそうですね、僕が
What was standard chat?
まあ
I didn't hear.
僕もともと結構 FPS もやるんですけど、Call of Duty Modern Warfare の1、2をやった時に、これちょっと例えが適切かどうかわかんないけど、これはファイナルファンタジーだなと思ったんですよ。
Thank you.
FPS なんですけど。
And then also, I love first-person shooters. So when I played Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 and 2, and I know this might sound very inappropriate, but I thought to myself, wow, this reminds me of Final Fantasy.
なんか本当少人数で世界を救うじゃないですか。リアリティがないですよ普通。でもめちゃくちゃ面白いんで、あれ結構衝撃だったんですよ。 FPS なんですけど。
And you go into there, you go in as the protagonist, and you have this very small party who saves the world. Like, you know, it's such a it was such a shock. It's like, oh wow, that's just like Final Fantasy, although it's a first-person shooter.
で最近だとまあちょっと前ですけど PS4 のスパイダーマンが出た時にこれだけなんていうんですか、テクノロジーと
Yeah, he's not wrong.
遊び、それからキャラクターコントロールをなんだろう、ゲームってエンターテインメントで提供できるんだっていうのはす
Come
ご
on,
い悔しかったし、
We got some
すげえな
ERP.
と思ったので結構実は影響でかくて、でその後はゴースト・オブ・ツシマでちょっと悔しくなってるんで、ちょっといろいろ考えたり感じたりしてることはあったりしますね。はい。
And then some of the more recent games would be Spider-Man on PlayStation 4. That one made me feel so jealous and envious. And at the same time, just left me in awe that they were able to bring together like the gameplay elements to the character controls, bringing together like video game and entertainment in a single package. So yeah, I was very jealous of that. And then Ghost of Tsushima made me feel very jealous as well. So that left me thinking a lot also.
Ghost of what?
まあなんでま
I never
あ
heard
話してた
that one.
きりがないのでまあこれぐらいですけど多分皆さんが思ってる以上に
Ghost of Tsushima
めちゃくちゃいろんなゲーム
あー
ちゃんとクリア
okay,
ま
okay.
で全部やってますね。
I've
But
seen
yeah,
like a trailer
it's
of it.
a lot. If
I
I
haven't
start
played it,
listing
though.
them, I don't know where I'd stop. But I love games, so I play a lot of games, and I do a lot of playthroughs as well.
I hate to be the bad guy, but we are
Yeah.
a little bit over time. We could probably do something to wrap it up in the next couple of minutes if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Perfect, perfect.
Rich, you want to go ahead?
Well, just because we're at the end, I do want to say one more time, thank you so much. If you gave us 8 hours, we'd probably ask for 9 because we're so excited to actually get to talk to everybody. And for like I've honestly the past 3 months have been so incredible, and I think I can speak for both me and Asmon that we've had a truly incredible experience. So.
Yeah, thanks a lot for giving us this opportunity. It's a privilege. We've really enjoyed playing the game so much. Originally, whenever I went into it, I didn't really know what to expect. And I think at this point, I've probably logged about 20 to 30% of the hours of all days up to the day that I started playing the game on the game. So I've played a
Golden
lot.
Saucer.
It's been extremely fun. I've loved it. So thank you so much for
Rephrase
the
that.
opportunity, and thank you for making such a great game.
I think Asmon and I both, when we went into the game, we intended to beat the hardest content possible. Like that was what we both wanted to do. And I'm pretty sure he spends about 14 hours of every day just in Gold Saucer. And I'm he's just trying to make the best chocobo ever. And I'm just in my FC estate just all day long stalling.
Dude, I'm in my FC all day too. Dude, that's why this game is so good. I'm in my FC all day too. I'm like, hey, I need to end stream and go eat. I'm in my FC play. I'm like, I need to go work on video. I'm on FC.
そうです。
I'm
まあ
not
終わりの
European.
コメントになってきました
I
の
just
で、
like
こ
hanging
ちらから
out.
ぜ
It's
ひ感
so
謝の言
good.
葉をお伝えさせてください。
It's
お
so
そらく
fun.
8時間のインタビューをやろうって言った話であったら、こちらとしてはもう
Yeah,
9時間も
yesterday I was
話
in
したい
FC until
って
5
いう
a.m.
くらい、吉田さん方とお話できる機会を本当に楽しみにしていました。ゲームをプレイしてまだ 3
I think that's
ヶ
what
月
WoW's
なんですけれど
missing.
も、本当に素晴らしい
That
体験をさせていた
community.
だいて、素晴らしい
There's nowhere
経
to
験に
hang
な
out
っ
in
た
WoW.
なっています。
I don't know anyone who
ア
like
ズモン
hangs
さん
out
の
in
方
WoW.
も本当に今日はありがとうございました。
Like in game, like
ゲー
sits
ムを
around
遊
in
ぶ
the
こと
table
がで
and
きて
like
本当に光栄に思っ
just
ていま
play.
すし、ゲームを始めた当初は本当に何が出てくるのか全然わからない状態で入ったものなんですけれども、本当にハマってしまい、ゲームを始めた段階からもう全て遊んでいるゲームのうちのもう2割3割をもう占めてるんじゃないかというぐらい遊び込んでいます。ので、本当に大好きなゲームとなりました。で、もともとリッチさん、アズモンさんが14を始めたきっかけは、ゲームの中で一番難しいコンテンツをクリアしようぜっていう意気込みで入ったつもりだったんですけれども、
I do run
アズモ
laps in
ン、
Orbis.
アズモンのやつ、14時間は優にゴールド操作でずっと過ごしてるよねっていう話をしつつ、リッチさんはFC ハウスの中でもうだらだらまったりしてるだけになっているので、
いやいやでもやっぱり MMO って僕はこれも僕のちょっとインタビューの最後のコメントにしますけど、やっぱり MMO って遊び方自由であるべき、まあそもそもゲームは全部そうあるべきだと思ってます。
Yeah, I would like to share some comments on my end as well. So first, MMO, and I think this applies to any game in general, but I feel that video games should allow for the player to be free in what they do.
でやっぱりゲームに疲れることもある、プレイするのに疲れることもある、リフレッシュしたいこともある。だから僕はなんか1個のゲームに縛る本当にナンセンスだと思ってるので、今は2人とも WoW を1回お休みしてるとは思うんだけど、14プレイして WoW プレイしたり WoW プレイして14プレイするとお互いのいいところっていうのがまた見えてくると思うので、やっぱりいろんなゲームの配信をみんな多分楽しみにしてる。それは2人だけじゃなくて、なのであんまり責任感でゲームをプレイしないでほしいなっていうのはすごいどのストリーマーの人にも感じることなので、ぜひ楽しんでプレイをしてもらえると見てる僕たちもみんな楽しいと思うので、ぜひそれは 忘れないでいてほしいです。僕が言うことじゃないのかもしれないけど、はい、ぜひこれからも楽しんでもらえると嬉しいです。
And so with that freedom, some people might get tired of playing the same game constantly, or like just gameplay gets to be a little tiring. Some people might want a refresh. And I feel that players don't need to be tied down to one single game. For all intents and purposes, if you guys were like taking time off from World of Warcraft just to play 14, I don't know. I feel like it's players who kind of latch onto one single game and just become too tied up with a single game is nonsense. It feels very unnatural. So if people want to play 14 and go to WoW and then go back and forth, I think that's perfectly fine. And you might see the
Imagine if all developers had that in mind, dude.
positive elements of both titles by being able to get that different perspective. And I would love for people to streamers out there also to not be so like
Modern
tied
only
up
play any
or
other
like
games.
feel a sense of
If I miss 1
heavy
week, I miss a chance
responsibility
to
or
get
like
my big eye level
an
gear.
obligation to stick with
I
a
need
single
to
game
play
just
it.
because that's what they have sort of concentrated on in the past. I would love for people to explore various games out there. There are many options out there. So I hope we're not placing any sort of like obligation on you guys either. Like we would love for you guys to just continue to enjoy the game, and we never want for it to be.
Dude, the weird thing about FF is like it doesn't force you to come online and play like it does in WoW. Where if you don't play 1 week, you miss high on your big eye level gear or your chests from PvE and PvP. And there's much more into it, but I won't go into it. But in FF, I just want to be on it for no reason. It's a good game. I'm like, I'm gonna AFK and farm playtime and Limsa, and then I end up like just playing all day. I can never AFK, or I don't know. I just like being on the game. It's a good game.
Any sort of burden on you guys. I think that will also allow for the audience to
I wish
see you
more WoW
guys like
people tried
genuinely
FF.
enjoying what you do, and that will allow for us to enjoy watching you guys, having fun. So I feel I want to encourage you, like you guys do a great job in what you do, and please don't forget that to enjoy yourselves too. I don't know, I might I might be stepping out of bounds by saying this, but I wish that you continue to enjoy playing your games.
I genuinely,
Wow.
I've enjoyed the story so much that sometimes after stream I go back and I use the feature where you can replay the story mission.
Thank you for the big host. Hello, Duck Army.
And so like I've enjoyed the MSQ. I have not binged a story as much as like the last time I binged a story this much was like when I watched One Piece for the first time. Like that is how much I love this story. So I am enjoying myself so much, and I can't thank you guys enough.
It's been nothing. It's been everything except a burden. It's been very fun, and I've loved being able to have that ease of access of just being able to play the game without feeling like I'm compelled to, or without some sort of retention mechanic keeping me engaged. And I thank you for that. It's been enjoyable to just be able to play it at my own pace and really enjoy.
I love that,
and
being able to play in own pace, and I get to do all the old content, and I don't need to farm eye level to do the old content. I could just go in and it like sets you in that eye level. I love that. This game has it all, man.
Appreciate the story as well as just the gameplay and the content
Has
and
it
the raids
all.
and everything.
いや、ありがとうございます。
Thank you.
遅い時間までまた機会があったらぜひ次はねコロナが落ち着いて直接フェイス2フェイスでお酒でも飲みながらね話せるとまた楽しいと思うので次の機会も楽しみにしてます。
I'm definitely looking forward to any future opportunities we may have to speak with each other, hopefully in person. I'm so done with this pandemic. I would love to just go out for drinks and just talk
that's crazy if they go out together. Oh my god.
Up some more with you guys in the near future. Thank you again for your time.
Would love that. Thank you again.
We would absolutely love that. Thank you so much.
See you next time.
See you next time. That's so good, Chad. That was a great interview, man. Wow.